You are tuned to the FM Gold channel of All India Radio Delhi. Today is Vijay Divas, a day that is very important in the defence history of India. We now bring you an interaction with defence journalist Mr. Mayank Singh, recounting the events leading to the War of 1971 with Nitish Arora. Over to Nitish.
Hello listeners. Malcolm X had said, sometimes you have to pick the gun up to put the gun down. Today is Vijay Divas, which is also being celebrated as Vijay Diwas in Bangladesh. And we have today with us in the studios Mr. Mayank Singh, a senior defense correspondent. Welcome to the studios.
Thank you so much.
Let this come straight from the horse's mouth. What is the significance of Vijay Divas?
It's a very important day in the military history of any nation on this earth, because it was the time when not only the largest number of POWs after the World War II they surrendered.
Prisoner of war.
They were part of under the Indian Army. A new nation on the earth took birth, and it also became an example wherein a nation stood up against the atrocities, against the suppressions which were happening right next to its neighborhood.
So let us disclose this to the listeners who perhaps do not know. In fact, most of the people do know that this 71 war was a liberation of Bangladesh. So that's how I started, that it is being celebrated as Vijay Diwas across the borders. India never wanted to go into this war, but then this war was thrust upon us. Can you take us back to those days? Because you being a defense correspondent, you might have come across many war veterans of 1971, and we must have interviewed them and met them, and you must be having lots of stories to share.
You're very correct. In fact, I feel fortunate that I started covering defense and I became a defense beat reporter. See, to make our listeners understand the nuances of 1971 actually, we'll have to go back to 1947. So what is today Bangladesh was East Pakistan, and the nation was run from the Pakistan which was West Pakistan, and today it is the only Pakistan which remains. The budget amount of...
And more so, in fact, the Punjab Pakistan, which is still ruling in the rest of the Pakistan. The same mistake that they committed in East and West Pakistan is being committed in West Pakistan itself right now.
In fact, you have given it in a single sentence actually, which is also called as Punjabization of entire Pakistan, which is happening right now. So 1947, when the independence came to both India and Pakistan, so there was small amount of budget. Economy was not doing that well. So India started growing as much as it could, and there was a lot of American help which was coming to Pakistan. Then suddenly war happened in 1962, war happened in 1965, and again 1971. In the neighborhood, lots of violence started taking place. People started migrating that country, and almost 10 lakh people, almost 1 million people, they had to take refuge in India. And India being India, which has always propagated the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, it gave refuge to those people. But it also was realized that it was draining us completely. Our political leadership at that time, the military leadership at that time, they realized that it cannot go long. So they started meeting people across the world. They started going to the other nations to tell them the kind of plight which was being faced by the people of then so-called East Pakistan. Then people agreed actually. And it so happened that India was trying to, in terms of precautionary deployment, it had its people posted along the borders. Then it was intervening night of third evening, perhaps at around 5:30, the Pakistanis, they launched attack at 11 airfields.
You're talking about 3rd of December 1971.
71. And it was a simultaneous attack on 11 airfields, but on the western border. That was the biggest mistake which Pakistan could have done, because India was not going to war. India was not wanting that the kind of violence which happens after war takes place, but it had to safeguard itself.
So the theatre of war basically initially was on the western front.
That's the correct point actually. It started from west.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it happened, lots of things happened which were very interesting. Like by that time Pakistan had already moved its submarine, which was PNS Ghazi, which was the only submarine in the subcontinent. 1964, they had already got the submarine on lease from America, and it was waiting. It was trying to hunt our aircraft carrier of the time, INS Vikrant. But military is, there are lots of games and there are lots of smart moves which are done by the military commanders. And news was spread around that the INS Vikrant, which was the aircraft carrier, was at that time at Vizag and was not moving. Reality was different. It was already moved out.
So Pakistan might have anticipated that INS Vikrant would be like taking care of the eastern theater of the war, and that is why they opened the west, so that the Indian army or Indian intelligence or Indian military moves the entire thing towards the west to ward off the attack, and eventually Indian army won't take part in the eastern theater to liberate Bangladesh. So that was a strategy what Pakistan evolved.
Pakistanis thought the same as you are saying. They brought the thrust towards the west to keep our forces focused towards west. But our planners, the military commanders of that time, they had foreseen lots of things. In anticipation, a missile strike group was formed at around Gujarat, Okha, and there were 3 boats waiting for command to be given to them to destroy Karachi at that time. So they got a command. On the 4th, they moved out and they struck down 2 destroyers of Pakistan, 1 merchant ship which was actually bringing in ammunition, and there was another ship which was minesweeper, which was also so badly damaged that it could not be used further. And it was done so smartly. That was Navy which was doing it actually. And
so had it not even been for at the eastern front, this war was supposed to happen, because it started in the western front.
Yes, it was meant to happen. Pakistanis, when they third evening 5:30, when they came upon us at 11 places, we did not have a choice, because let's say it was because Indian planners, Indian policymakers had anticipated. So the aircrafts, they were moved under the bunkers. They were safe. Had that not happened, India would have got a huge damage in terms of the aircrafts. They were like a sitting duck for the Pakistanis at that time.
So Air Force played a very crucial role, and ground forces also played a very crucial role as far as eastern Pakistan was concerned. At that time it was eastern Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh. So the war lasted only for 13 days. I think that was very fierce, very quick, and as you said, largest number of prisoner of wars.
The war is a game of psychology. Indian commanders like Lieutenant General Sagat Singh, like JFR Jacob, like Lieutenant General J.S. Arora, there were 3 corps, 2 corps, 4 corps and 33 corps. They had planned everything in case the war takes place. So the thrust on East Pakistan at that time, which was being looked after by the administrator, the then administrator who was administering the martial law, Lieutenant General A.A. Niazi, he was looking after that. He did not realize that they had 4 divisions. The East Pakistan section was looked after by 4 divisions of Pakistan Army, and whatever the number of aircrafts were there. So the thrust, Indians, they had planned from 3 sides. They started moving the army. Also, what we talked initially, that INS Vikrant was moved in. The
Ghazi was also, I think,
that is
taken care of.
That is a very interesting point actually. On 3rd itself, suddenly a blast took place close to the port there, Visakhapatnam, Vizag. It was realized that Pakistanis could move in so close to the naval port there. Imagine. But as it was to happen, the swiftness of Indian Armed Forces, Indian Navy, they could strike it down. But then there are lots of controversial statements always had been made about Ghazi. It's how it submerged. The 1903 sailors of Pakistan Navy, they went into peril. and later on we had been trying to find out and think the status of the submarine had still been, we often try to check what is the status of that place. So as we said, Ghazi was already struck down, it went down, and missile boats, they had struck down Karachi port. 3 course they started moving towards East Pakistan, and there were airstrikes made by your airborne crafts from the INS Vikrant. Imagine.
Pakistan gave us a lot in terms of preparedness for the war and for the defense of the nation, because I presume border security force, in fact it came into force only after 1965 war, and they had to play a very crucial role in 1971 war. Can you tell us something about that?
It is a very interesting point actually. When you say national power, so national power includes everything: your economic power, your military power, your leadership, the kind of strength of leadership is there, the kind of diplomacy you play, that becomes the national power. Here was a force created post 1965 to look after your western borders.
The border security force.
Border security force. And it was just 6-year-old. But the kind of role...
Rather 6 years young. It was very young organization.
But there was a Brigadier B.C. Pandey who was given charge to look after the Yodhas who had suffered so much of atrocity from the Pakistan army at that time. Children were killed, the women were mutilated, they were lots of atrocities were being done with the ladies also. So they had rushed in, but they had that fortitude, the desire to get their nation back. And it was Brigadier B.C. Pandey who was at that time serving with BSF. He took charge of lots of things. And interestingly, you'll be amused, you'll be happy to know that 6-year young force, it at that time got 1 Mahavir Chakra and almost 13 Veer Chakras. And it played a very crucial role when it comes to intelligence sharing. So when I said national power, intelligence played a very crucial role, which was at that time under Mr. R.N. Kao. So you were getting pinpointed intelligence, human intelligence was very good, your artillery fires were landing at the right spots, and Pakistan was shaken, it was moved badly. Pakistan army and Pakistan military is also a professional force, but the way they had perpetrated cruelty on people, it was unbecoming of any professional force at that time.
Obviously, India was able to liberate East Pakistan from the atrocities of the West Pakistan, and a new nation was formed. We also suffered a lot of casualties.
We had almost 3,900 people killed in action. Almost 10,000 people, they were either maimed, they were either handicapped, they suffered physical damage, physical hurt, which was for the lifetime. So it was a major...
But then there was a very big role played by a civil army, the East Pakistan and the Mukti Wahini. It is unbelievable, because even our generals have also credited that the war was played equally by Indian army as well as the Mukti Wahini.
It's a very crucial thing actually. If people of a place, they are against the army, then one, their intelligence goes out, their movement, their numbers, it goes out, and they doesn't get a support. So morally they lose. India was at a position of moral ascendancy because it was helping a nation. It was fighting against people who were causing atrocities, perpetrating
and India never shied away from telling that yes, I had to go to the theatre of war. It was made a compulsion for us to participate, because having this much of refugees inside our own land was draining our resources. And on the other hand, we could not play a blind eye towards our neighbor who was suffering, who was brutalized by somebody from their own clan.
Right. It was in April 1971 that provisional government of Bangladesh, it was formed in Mujibnagar. And you'll be happy to know that even BSF at that time, it had a very important role to play. The Constitution of Bangladesh, it was helped by a BSF officer to be formed, who was earlier in army. There's an important point actually to tell you. When we talk to the former officers who had taken part in this war, you get to understand the kind of excitement those people had, the kind of emotional charge those people had, because it was matter of a nation and young officers, they were going to war. I'll quote an example of one officer. His name is Lieutenant General V.K. Chaturvedi, who is an artillery officer. He fought in the area of Sylhet, and 99 Field Regiment got the Battle of Sylhet honor. So when once I was talking to him about 1971 war, he was so charged up that you can feel his emotions. He was describing things as if he was standing uphill. He was talking about 30 kilometers, whatever he could watch, and he was palpitating with that excitement actually. In 2016, he was called to Bangladesh. Bangladesh had started calling people who had helped them and felicitating them. He was called when he met the army chief there. He had helped a battalion called 1 East Bengal Regiment. The CEO of that regiment was called at that day to meet him, and he said that I was very emotional when I saw them.
Obviously. 93,000 prisoners of wars India had taken in, and this was a decisive war on many counts, because after 71, Pakistan have never tried a full-blown war with India. Skirmishes here and there. We had Siachen, we had Kargil, but a full-blown war Pakistan never dared to, because challenging India on two fronts and yet losing their own battle.
You have picked up such an important point which should be talked to people actually. 3,000 who became prisoner of war, they were armed. Let us not forget that.
Absolutely.
So
they surrendered with their arms and ammunition.
And they were healthy, fighting, fully prepared, fighting fit soldiers. Imagine the kind of the win which India had. And it was more psychological. So you can understand the planners which India had, the kind of thrust which India could make, and the kind of impression it created was so mind-blowing to them that they got swept off, overwhelmed completely. The point here is that Indian defense planners, they were innovative at that time.
So they still are.
They still are actually. We are talking of 1971. So what they did is actually when, let's say, rivers was to be crossed, and that started right from March, April, when the thought of going to full-blown war came into the mind of Indian government at that time. The then Army Chief, General HFJ Manek Shah, later on the Field Marshal, he advised the then Prime Minister, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, let us postpone the war for some time, because as per the weather conditions, it would have not been that much feasible to win such a big victory over that country, that place. So it was postponed. Later on, when the movements were made by the armed forces, by the battle teams, units, they picked up such areas, such places, such routes which were said to be impossible for movement. Imagine. So when your soldiers are so much motivated to perform, nothing stops them. And that was also later seen in Kargil when they climbed 90-degree straight cliffs also. So innovation was the name of the game. Indian planners, the thrust, the motivation, everything had overwhelmed the Pakistanis.
Innovation and grit and determination of our soldiers. Any parting shot that you would want to tell our listeners?
The biggest thing which we have to understand, that training of the Indian Armed Forces has been such that when a boy, hardly 18 years old, 19 years old boy, or maximum 21-year-old boy, he comes out of the academy, it is the success of that training which makes him so motivated. He can give everything for the country, and which has happening since then. So this country is proud of its armed forces because.
And as you started, that India believes in the philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The entire world is a family, and we never are aggressors, but we know how to defend our motherland. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, and thank you for calling me here.
You just heard an interaction between defense journalist Mr. Mayank Singh and Nitish Arora on Vijay Divas. We welcome your suggestions and comments regarding our programs on our email ID englishsw@gmail.com. This broadcast came to you over FM Gold channel of All India Radio, Delhi.